Hello and welcome everyone, or welcome back. I'm Kathy Liska with the Center for Coaching Certification and Coach 123.
Hi, and I'm Pandora Ray, also with the Center for Coaching Certification and Coach 123.
And we are super excited about our guests today and what they're going to share with you, what they've been working on. So let's start by inviting each of you to introduce yourselves, and then we'll dive into what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. I'm Kimberly Johnson. I'm the lead coach for a project at Rogers Behavioral Health in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. And I'm really happy to be here to talk about coaching and share what we do.
Awesome. I agree. Thank you so much for having us today. I'm Patrick Uselding. I am the other lead coach with Kimberly, and we are running the Coaching for Success project out of Sheboygan County. So doing a lot of work in the schools with school counselors, school social workers, and school psychologists. So we're excited to tell you all more about that today.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, let's go there. Tell us about this project you're working on.
So Coaching for Success started out of a desire from funders and community members who saw a need to work within schools to try to reach youth and make sure that they had environments where they felt safe and that they felt that their social, emotional, and behavioral needs were being cared for. And so what came out of that exploration and experimentation is a project where we work with school psychologists, counselors, and social workers to develop them as coaches for their colleagues in the schools.
Excellent.
A big focus is on helping teachers to better implement SEL, mental health, and trauma-informed care strategies within the schools. Some folks, that touchy-feely part of social emotional learning is tough for some folks. So too often they'll go to trainings and get so excited and pumped about it in that room, but then get back to their classrooms and they don't have any support, and their confidence level goes down a little bit, and they're not quite sure how to implement all the great things they had learned. So that's where Coaching for Success steps in. It's like, let's let these coaches help you do that implementing.
Yeah, which is awesome. I mean, the research backs that theory. There was a study done at Xerox where people do training, and then 87% of the skills change gained is lost if you don't have the follow-up coaching. So the coaching really speaks to that. That's exciting.
Yeah.
What are the big challenges the schools are facing?
Yeah, I can speak from my own experience to start. As a classroom teacher, I worked as a secondary language arts and special education teacher. And I worked in a school where, like, systemically, space was created to care for the social, emotional, and behavioral needs of kids. So there was time for it. We were trained for it. And it was a really high functioning team of teachers. And we were still very sensitive to negativity bias. And it made things very difficult because of the work that individuals have to do in order to be effective in using the practices that we know and research shows supports children in their development in these ways. And so I think that caring for the adults and their needs, and as like their developmental needs, teachers are learners. And that is something that just really is a need. And teachers do take care of each other. They go to each other for support to process. But these skills that, I'm a relatively new coach, just 1 year in, and these skills had I had them when I was working in schools, would have really transformed the way that I relate to my colleagues. And that's something that our participants are telling us too.
So if I'm understanding, this is a systemic approach to supplement the classroom instructional training by not targeting, but working with the whole person of teachers at this point, right? And giving them more of the skills that give them more, I don't know what the benefits are there. I'm sure you're going to tell us, but it's sort of this interstitial space you're working in this coaching program, it sounds.
Yeah, and even learning to become a coach, we inherited a model for this project from some incredible designers and coaches. And what I'm learning as we implement it is that the power of coaching is not necessarily in the coach or the client, but it's really in the space between. So I'm so glad that we are preparing these educators who are already in the schools to become coaches, because it's really the relationship between them and in the environment that leads to the incredible cultural change that I think is necessary to support the needs of the young people as they grow into this world of uncertainty that we're facing.
It's
Yeah.
great to be able to come into the schools with this idea of coaching and have schools see how it can impact so many different areas of their school, to improve that culture, but it's improving relationships between staff members. It's improving the relationships between teachers and their students in their classroom, that there are so many benefits to coaching that you may not think about on the surface. I mean, even a large problem many schools face is teacher retention. Well, coaching does so much to build up that confidence, to give teachers that sounding board, and somebody like Kimberly is just saying, to create that space where you can feel safe and respected and listened to in order to help you accomplish what you want to do, makes these teachers feel confident. Like, okay, I was thinking the other day when there was complete chaos going on in my classroom, that can I do this? Am I cut out to do this? And be like, you know what, gosh darn it, I can do this. I have the skills to do this.
Mhm.
And that's one of the beautiful things about coaching, is to help people be able to see that you have what you need inside. And then it trickles down to the students, it trickles across to colleagues. I don't know, it is such an unbelievably powerful way, just as it is in any setting, but since we work with educators, it's a powerful thing to be able to see spread, or to have one of our coaches say, hey, I met with one teacher one time,
Mhm.
and they came back to me and was like, wow, I was able to use that and saw a difference immediately in my classroom. To me, that is unbelievably exciting and powerful.
Yeah. No, that's great. I can imagine the list is like 10 miles long of how coaching benefits in the school. Uh, I'm really curious. So for you with this program, how are you presenting that to the schools?
The benefits?
Mm-hmm.
We know that schools are really complex places, and there's a lot of demands and complex accountability, publicly and internally, and to a student when you're one-on-one. And I think that optimism is a big part of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
As a teacher, you come into the field with certain values and a purpose, and every minute is a moment of optimism in order to keep doing it. And so when we share the feedback from the coaches who are in the schools and their coachees or clients, that's really the most powerful part of what we communicate. And I can read some of the things that our participants have shared with us to give a sense of what that's like. One person said the biggest benefit is viewing the importance of listening and reflecting, not just fixing everyone's problems. Another person talked about how Coaching for Success, which is the name of the program, allows coaches and coachees to build a stronger professional relationship, which in turn helps students reach their full potential. The ability and skills that I learned as a coach allows my colleagues to take ownership of their own solutions, and that's been great.
Wow.
Yeah, and a lot of things about how their own reflection and their development as a coach, about their socialization and their biases, helps them show up for their colleagues in a way. You know, none of us can function with judgment. And in a school, to have a space that's judgment free so that people can be honest with themselves in their context is just really powerful.
And our student services folks who we work with and train, they're very accustomed to so many of their peers coming in and looking for immediate answers or unloading on them. And that's been another thing that they've appreciated, is taking some of that ownership and having to have all the answers for everybody all of the time. And to be like, hey, I'm going to turn that conversation around a little bit, you know, and empower you to come up with those answers, you know, and that's actually, I mean, helping relationships. I feel like a lot of our participants have been surprised at how coaching has led to these improved relationships, that I don't think they thought of some of the, I hate to say side effects of coaching, you know, but you just think of immediately what you're speaking about in a coaching session and then going and implementing, but there's more to it than that. And I think that's been a real surprise, that we can talk about it in a seminar space and it's one thing, but for them to be then living it in their buildings and realizing how much more coaching can do than just an impact in the classroom has been great. And in our project, our format is kind of a three-pronged approach. Our entire cohort meets monthly in a seminar space. And then we meet with smaller site teams. Maybe there's a school that has 4 people in it, we'd meet with them, or maybe it's a district who has 6 people. And then we also do one-on-one coaching with each person. So it gives us that chance to have that bigger picture, but then to suit things to individual schools or districts to make sure that they're able to do what is needed for their specific location, which is extremely helpful because no 2 schools are alike. You know, we have some of those same issues, but where those issues are coming from and how they're going to be solved is very different all over the place.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's you're creating a whole culture change within the schools.
Right. That is definitely the intent. Yes.
And, you know, it takes time. We're fortunate to have 2 years with our participants to work with them. But for them to have multiple people that they're coaching in a school and for us to train more coaches, you know, that shift takes time. And we're really fortunate to be in a community. And if we were ever to share this project with other communities, something that we would make sure that we communicate is that it doesn't happen just through this program. One of the really important pieces of this program is the local funders and the local leaders who are also working toward the improved mental health of young people. Schools is an obvious place for that, but there's also people working in the local, you know, clubs and working with Mental Health America and working with United Way and school-based mental health services for kids. And we're all talking and communicating and trying to figure out what it is that we can do to, as a community, wrap our arms around the kids and the teachers and the schools and all the providers to make sure that, you know, not just their classroom is a safe place to learn, but the whole community is healthier.
Yeah.
And that's the approach Rogers Behavioral Health took when taking this from Milwaukee, which was the first pilot, to Sheboygan is they started with getting involved with the United Way, all the places Kimberly was talking about, and local schools, and said, okay, this is what the project is. We want to personalize it to this community. What do we need to know? Who are the key players? So even before Kimberly and I came on, this leadership team had already been meeting for 6 months prior, putting the pieces into place before actually bringing on participants from the schools. And even like I said before we came on, that it was really the community came around this. You know, they were actually the ones who reached out, some funders, and said, hey, we've got some money to give and we want it to be in this arena. You know, what do you have going on? So it's neat to see a community grasp the idea that the mental health needs of our communities keep rising, you know, and for a community to say, we want to do something about it, you know, please come be a part of that. How can we work together to do it is utterly amazing to me. It's awesome that they care enough to know that, hey, we need these teachers to work with these students because they're going to be the adults. They're going to be the ones running our communities. You know, what can we do to make our communities healthier and stronger?
Yeah. So it's as you're developing and building it out, I'm imagining other school systems hearing about it and wanting it in their school. What do you want them to know?
I mean, I believe that investing in teachers is sometimes feels a little delicate because people want to invest in kids. So it feels like you're stepping away from kids by investing in teachers a little bit or something like that. But I would say it's always a good investment. Coaching services, coaching opportunities are, at least in the United States, seem to be reserved for people with like financial means and, CEOs and people, high potential hires and corporations. And we have plenty of that around us. And I would say that teachers, given the number of relationships they have to manage, the number of decisions that they make, the time constraints that they do all of this in, they deserve coaches. And teaching is dignified work that, let's invest in that, and let's make sure that the demands that they face regarding, not typically what you think of in a school, perhaps, their work around math or literacy is important too. But the reality is we've got, almost 50% of teachers considering leaving the profession.
Yeah.
Many teachers leave before the end of their 3rd year. And research from,
Wow.
everywhere shows that you can't really take care of the mental health of youth if you're not taking care of your own. And offering coaches in this space is one way that we can support that.
Yeah. What you said about that investment in teachers, to me, investment in teachers is investing in kids.
Me too.
Because that's who's working with the kids.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's something that happens simultaneously. Because if you can have a teacher who through coaching is feeling more confident, and we have so many coaches tell us they feel revitalized, that it's and the coachees or the clients being coached, it's like, wow, I can leave a coaching session and have that feeling of, yeah, I am ready to go. Let's do this, which you may have lost after, a difficult period the time before. So that's powerful. They're going to then enter that classroom feeling on top of the world. Right there, the students are benefiting then. Yeah. So yeah, anything we can do to help our teachers feel more confident and like they're being listened to and that they can do it, that benefits everybody. And then it benefits, honestly, it benefits their families when they go home. it benefits the community as large when you are out in the community. So it always feels like such a win-win-win-win-win-win situation
Yeah. Yeah.
when people are receiving coaches. I mean, who wouldn't want a coach? I mean, really is how I look at it. Once we get past that roadblock of people understanding what coaching is, because there are different kinds of coaches in schools and the impact it can truly have. I mean, there's no turning back to the possibilities.
I'm
Yeah.
so glad you mentioned that. I was just thinking about how you deftly communicate what a coach is versus an educator, a teacher, a mental health professional. How do you
Yeah.
manage that communication process?
Well, right from the first seminar we are working with the social workers and the counselors and the psychologists, it's something we have to make clear from the very beginning. There's no place for therapy and coaching. You know, you might use some coaching skills in the counseling in their jobs, they're doing that, and they definitely recognize that. But from day one, we find it really important to be like, okay, mentor, consultant, trainer, teacher, therapist, these are the differences. This is where some mixing can happen and where they can't happen. But then also making sure that, since schools are very used to looking at coaching in a different way, where a coach is in a classroom helping, giving feedback, showing, that's different from what we're doing. And a lot of times it's coaches in schools might be used when there is some kind of a deficit. And that's not how we look at coaching as a deficit. We want people to want to be coaches and to want to have a coach. So that's a learning curve that we start in day one, helping our participants be ready to not only know those distinctions on their own, but to communicate those with the people in their schools, that what we need to look at coaching differently than how schools traditionally have. So that is a little bit of a barrier for some folks in schools at first, but tackle it head on right away, and that helps.
Yeah, there's so much misunderstanding around the type of coaching that we do.
Mhm.
And yeah, people think of the athletic coach, or the coach that's going to teach you how to do this, that, or the other thing. The term is thrown around so much and in so many different ways. So how do you define the coaching that you are providing people?
Primarily as a partnership, in the same way that ICF does, and as a creative process where the conversation starts in one place and it ends up in a different place that isn't predetermined. And I think that helps people understand that really the space, the conversation is the tool. And all the things that go into that. And so our coaches, when we're helping them understand how to set aside, what's going on in their mind, to really truly listen and to reflect back to their clients and to ask questions, and how they're showing up in that space really is about creating what didn't exist before. And in some of those other modalities of coaching, there really is a prescribed sort of like, here's how you will do this, because this training, this research-based practice, this whatever it is, says that if you do it this way, A, B, and C will be the outcome. And in this case, the outcome at the beginning of the conversation hasn't been created necessarily. And so think about it as a partnership and a creative process.
Yeah. That's awesome. And that word partnership is so meaningful, because the other types that we're talking about, somebody's telling or teaching, if you will. Whereas in this, you're there as a partner with the process, not the answer.
Yeah. Well, we're equals. We're not up here telling them that we know everything. Even though we do have that background in education, and but that's not the point. I can learn more from you in a coaching session about the topic, than you'd be able to learn, from me. So and I think there are definitely people who appreciate that we're not coming in telling them this is what you have to do.
Mhm.
So that's a definite plus.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So talk more about some of the success you're experiencing with your program.
I I just love seeing the responses from our participants after they've had a coaching session. To be so excited and I mean, in a way, sometimes amazed, that, okay, wait a minute. I'm just practicing. I'm just learning these things. And I can sit across from somebody and feel like I truly had an impact in that 30 minutes that we just spent together. And also, I think the surprise for so many of them on how the coaching was going to help improve relationships with colleagues. And just see them excited about that and feeling like, wow, I'm reconnecting with some people that I work with all the time. But it's a different dynamic now, and feeling good about that. That's
the
definitely
teachers,
one of my favorite things.
the teachers too, even after a short coaching session with a brand new coach, they're telling us that they feel better. They feel more prepared to walk into a challenging group of kids. They feel more able to with an understanding of what's in their control and what's not in their control. They feel more relief and less weight, and they're able to, move through their day and do that with, less of a burden that I would call sort of an ambiguous burden. They carry a lot, but it's not all tangible, and it's not all things they can impact. And so setting some of that stuff to the side is what happens in a coaching session, and they're allowed to focus on what it is they can control, and they just rediscover like how capable they are.
Yeah. And that's got to have an impact on the kids too.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And I think it's been also exciting to see, again, local community partners like the Department of Public Instruction of Wisconsin, wanting to reach out and, oh, what are you doing? How could we be involved? How can we have partners? So to have different organizations like that, or we were able to speak at a conference, and we have another one coming up where people are curious. They want to know more about what we're doing, how they can get involved. So that's been exciting to start seeing people. I think a lot of people recognize the need that's out there, but how many people are thinking, okay, we have this need around trauma-informed care and mental health, SEL, schools are having in the PD, but how many people think, oh, coaching is a way to help make sure these things are happening and to work on some things in school? So it's been validating to start seeing people be like, oh, that's a very interesting idea. I want to know more about that. And then hopefully they start making those connections that, okay, coaching, Kimberly had mentioned before, the idea of in the business world with executives. We're talking about schools now, but what professional in any profession couldn't use a coach? So hopefully people start making those connections and realizing, okay, this can be something extremely powerful.
So if I summarize it, you're going into schools, you're training people inside those schools to be coaches, and then they're providing the coaching to teachers and others in the school. And that's got to be changing culture, their relationships, like you said, and it's got to be carrying over into the classroom.
Mhm.
Well, we've had participants say, hey, I'm using some of these skills you're teaching us with my students. Yes. Or, oh, I didn't do a full coaching session, but I used some of the skills. Yes. That's what that's what we're looking for. Not everything has to be a sit down and I'm having this entire coaching conversation. They're powerful skills that you can use at home. You can use them in the you can use them anywhere you go. It's the skills of coaching that are there's so many. I mean, you're going to use them in any place. So I think seeing folks realizing and making some of those connections as well, that these are life skills that are powerful for anybody to have and
Yeah.
use.
And I do, we're talking very broadly about coaching, and I want to highlight that what we're really aiming toward is the skills around creating classrooms that foster and nurture the social, emotional, and behavioral well-being of young people. And that's not always the first step, but it is something that we're looking at. And as we coordinate with these other community partners, we can't go in and measure the change in kids because we're so removed from working with them. But collaboratively, we hope we will be able to do that. And it's just really exciting to be communicating about what we're doing. And I want to bring it back to the community again, because I think the work around stigma elimination in mental health that's happened in the last, 5 to 10 years has really made this conversation so relevant and part of what kids want to talk about. And they want to work on it, and they want to understand how to, be well when it comes to mental health. And so all of these things seem to be just sort of like fitting together in a way that's really beautiful. And I can't wait for more people to have coach training who are in schools. And I would love every teacher could have access to a coach, because I think just like where we are situated right now, post-pandemic or lingering pandemic, and with the conversations around mental health, more at the surface than they used to be. We just have a really good opportunity to take care of people and to improve our experience as communities.
I mean, to think of every classroom and every school having a culture where everybody feels like they belong, they're accepted, it's safe. I mean, and that's so much of what our coaching is helping educators to implement and to be more proactive and to create these spaces where not only do the kids want to come to school to learn because they feel cared about, they feel safe, but your educators are also getting that. That it's like, yeah, I want to go to work. I know I'm going to go to work and I'm accepted there. I'm going to be safe. People care about me. People are there to support me. We want to see schools like that, where it's a great place to go to. I mean, there's some kiddos that see their teachers more in a day than they might see their families.
Yeah.
I want our kids to go to school and be like, I feel good to be here. I mean, now granted, school may not be the favorite place for every student, but what if it was? What if it was a place they did love to go to?
Yeah.
Because the culture was so great, so that's.
I just want to thank you. This has been really uplifting, Kathy. We should do these on Fridays more often. I heard this negativity bias in the very beginning. I woke up here and I'm leaving here with a positivity bias and hearing such wonderful words like self-awareness and confidence and optimism and listening and partnership and creative process, and hearing about the positive change it's making is like, thank you for starting my weekend.
Well, and that's what we need around our schools so often, because sometimes teachers and schools can get a bum rap. And again, not everybody liked their school experience. So we love the idea of being a part of turning that around. That, any job you have, any building, there are always going to be issues, but there's a lot of great things going on, and there can be more great things that are going on if we're empowering the people that are in control and then helping that trickle down. It's an exciting thing to be a part of. I mean, I had spent almost 30 years in education, Kimberly over 15 years in education before coming to this role, and our hearts are there. You know, we'll do what we can do. So we're able to do a lot of personalization with Coaching for Success, like I said earlier, and doing exactly what buildings and districts need to fill some of those gaps and needs that they have in the area of mental health and trauma-informed care and SEL through coaching. And it's so rewarding, you know, just to get in there and be like, how can we help? What can our project do for y'all? And that's, like you were saying, Pandora, it's uplifting. It's positive, it's feeling good. That you kind of have to talk about what's not going right in these conversations. But by the time we leave and we've had it and we're like, this is where it's going to go, everybody leaves feeling awesome. And that's, I love that in the education space.
It seems like coaching is such an obvious answer, a simple answer, and a powerful answer for what schools are facing and what's going on. So it's so exciting that you're doing the work you're doing and really having that impact in the schools you're working with. So
We greatly appreciate the opportunity to highlight it and talk about it. It's something that, being it's something that's newer, we do get to talk about it a lot, and we get to give updates to our funders and possible new funders. And it's exciting every time you do it, to be able to give examples like Kimberly gave you some of the quotes before, to be able to share some of that, and just to see people's faces light up, to know that you are out there helping folks and eager to be able to do whatever you can do is exciting. And I have an awesome partner in Kimberly that we think very much that way and are ready to always get down to work and be taking every bit of feedback we have and all the reflection we have, and, you know, do that continuous improvement thing constantly.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for the work you're doing, and thank you for sharing what you're doing, because hopefully that inspires others and helps it happen more. So that's great.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much for giving us the
Y'all can come back
opportunity.
anytime, especially on a Friday.
Yeah, we want to hear more as you progress. Yeah, this is good. This is
Yeah,
good.
great.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. And we appreciate the work you're doing. So
Thanks
for having us.
Take care.
take care.
Thanks, you too.